Hey everyone. I'm going to assume this is working. So, something different. Not that it makes any difference to your end. Alright, so we're starting off by not making any sense whatsoever. A week ago, I thought I had my thoughts all in order and was actually looking forward to just doing a pod on my own. And I really thought I was going to do one after I got back from Greece. As a point of reflection and all that, and I met up with, we had the session with John and Andy. I was meant to have one with the midweek rub last week, and yeah, we had to postpone it. And so I sort of missed that boat. And I really thought I'd be doing one for just self-reflection, but yeah, I haven't managed to. And now that I finally got in here, my head was sort of swirling around as I was driving to the studio. I just happened to be in the areas for work, so I thought, fuck it, come down for a quick hour. And now I've gone blank. God, what am I doing? I'll be honest, ever since Greece, basically, I've been back on caffeine, and I'm noticing the difference. I'm a lot more wired during the day, and when I'm not on caffeine, I feel the difference. You're in a slump, everything's foggy, but I don't know which I'm preferring. If I'm going back to, being clean and sober, or getting back on the horse, or off the horse. I don't know. It's strange, because I'm just remembering, for me, caffeine represents a time where, I've always liked coffee, but when you work with tools, or you work outside in the field, or you're in sort of logistics and you're on the clock really early, you really use caffeine management, to its full sort of capacity, just to sort of stay awake and stay on top of numbers. And you've got, KPIs and all types of metrics where they're following your performance. And if you fall under, you get the sack. And so, yeah, I'm not sure why I'm on it now. Maybe because I've got a lot more on my plate and I just feel burnt out. Okay, now I remember what drove me to come and do the self-reflection again. But more on that in a second. I don't know. I had a lot. I guess a lot's happened, but I haven't been paying attention to the news much. No, you know what? It all sort of... There is a common theme to everything that I actually wanted to talk about. And I don't even know if it's of any interest to anyone. It's weird. I've been seeing more and more podcasts pop up, more and more people, being quasi influencers and starting podcasts from their cars or with the wireless mics, or, renting a studio somewhere and talking about shit. And I love the phrase, not everyone should have a podcast. Because the fact of the matter is, most people don't know what they're talking about. And the few times someone's pulled up something that they've wanted me to see on a reel or something, and I've just looked at it blankly and I've said, why am I watching this? Why are you putting time aside for this? Why does this person even have a platform? And they've tried to turn around and say, well, you have one, who the hell listens to your shit? I go, well, not many people. The difference is I don't believe my podcast is doing any harm. And it may be completely low-hanging fruit, which we're very well self-aware of, or there's something, something of value in there, whether it's inspirational, or informative or whatever it is. We're not actually doing any harm. We're not adding to the scrap heap, and I don't think we are. But some of the shit that you see online, people just want content. They don't care what it is anymore. And the proof of that is the attention span, mine included. People just keep rifling through shorts, reels, shorts, content no longer than 10 to 15 seconds at a time of totally different shit. Songs on the radio no longer than 2 minutes and 90 seconds. You're not going to get a Stairway to Heaven ever again because people don't have the patience for it. It's amazing how quickly the technology has advanced. It's amazing how quickly social media has progressed. I'm a product of social media because I was around of adult age at its inception. When did Facey really take off? 98? No, 98. 2008 was when I on my first trip as an adult, I was 24 years old, and everyone in the travel group got Facebook specifically for that trip, if they hadn't already had it, as a means to try and communicate through it, because we figured out it'd be a lot easier to use that to message each other rather than get, localized numbers in every country we were at. Remember, smartphones weren't a thing at that point. And, we're 17 years on, and now, concept of social media is just business, and it's part of history now. People base their lives around content creation, about all that sort of shit. I don't even know why I'm rambling. My brain really is scattered. I don't even know how I got to that. Anyway, what did I do this week? This time last week, I went to pick up my mum from the airport. She'd done 2 months in Greece, so I did 3 weeks. So I've gone to pick her up. There was a flight delay for about 2 hours, so I just stuck around the airport. I was, not in any mood to go leave and pay more parking. 2 hours at the airport, 2.5 hours at the airport, $50. Thank you very much. And I was just standing there at the gate, like the arrival gate where everyone comes out from passport control and after they get their bags and all that sort of thing. Speaking of which, my luggage got destroyed my suitcase that I had got damaged, and my mum's got damaged as well. Very, very strange. I pay for a premium airline for the first time in 20 years, and everything got damaged. Anyway, it's another story for another day. So I'm just standing there waiting, at the arrival terminal, and I'm just seeing everyone come out through the gate, and I'm looking around, and there's people, waiting for their loved ones. So there's all types of people standing there at the airport, and there were people with signs, clearly from some sort of transport company or chauffeurs or pickups, and then there's people from sponsorship and things like that, with names of nationals that are ready to pick up they've never met. Then there were families, whole families of like South Asians and Middle Easterns, because it was an Etihad flight that was coming in, and if you want to base it around that, so a lot of people come from the Middle East, and so there's whole families, and they're just waiting for this person to come off the plane. And then there's partners of people, so there might be 1 or 2 people tops waiting for one person to come in, and then you had the lone hitmen coming in off the plane that looked like they'd just done a job somewhere in South America with wearing the sunglasses at night. Can't really blame them. They don't even know what time zone they're in at that point. But, they've come in just like, lone wolves. Just walked right out. All business. And it got me thinking, when was the last time someone actually came to pick me up at the airport and greet me? Like actually missed me while I was away. I remember my parents picked me up in 2010. I'd done 3.5 months in Europe, and that was an indefinite trip. And I subsequently came back. And I remember both my parents came to pick me up, and I dyed my hair blonde. So then I had some new piercings as well. I was pale because I'd been over there over winter. I was wearing like a fake leather jacket and all that sort of shit. So I remember my old man's face when he saw me. But I think that was the last time anyone ever picked me up. Probably the only time anyone's ever picked me up. 2010. I was 25. And I'd been away for 3.5 months. It was so weird. Everyone coming off the plane, they look excited. They're waiting to see someone, that's missed them, obviously. Well, they look refreshed. They've got a tan because they've just done 2 weeks in, Vanuatu or something like that. I get off the plane. I'm usually a wreck. I've spent 24 hours sleeping. I've definitely run myself into the ground. If I'm coming from Europe, definitely run myself into the ground the last 48 hours, doing, 36 hours on the trot, crappy meals, lots of drinking, lots of booze or coffee. I literally look like shit when I get off the plane. I make it home, and the first thing I do is always take a shower. I dump my bags, have a long shower. I don't know, what's everyone's routine when they get back from a long trip, like a trip away? I'm not talking like, to Rosebud for 3 days or something. I'm talking like a proper long trip. I'm not in the business of leaving suitcases sitting around. I get back, I unpack almost immediately, and I throw everything in the wash straight up. I throw out things that I need to throw out. I just put things away as best as I can because I don't want to see luggage sitting around for months. That stupid suitcase that got damaged was brand new. I ended up getting a $70 credit from Etihad. Don't make it easy to apply for credit because my mum asked me to go to a place the other day and apply for hers and raise a case. And their website doesn't have a claims department. You've got to give feedback. And then within the feedback, you've got to make some feedback about your flight or whatever it is. The word claim, damages, lost, stolen, very, very scarce and nowhere to be seen on the Etihad website, which is interesting. They definitely don't make it easy. The actual process itself, once you've got the complaint in, you provide all the documentation, they'll request a receipt for your suitcase, which I clearly said, mate, I don't fucking have a receipt. It's unreasonable to ask for people to carry receipts for suitcases that they buy. And they offered me a max of, $70 Aussie remunerations, like 40 or 50 US or whatever it is, or euro. Can't remember the exchange. But it was about $70. I was like, yeah, that's fine. Flick it along. It was interesting. That whole nostalgia with the plane. And the airports, a lot of nostalgia there. There was purpose when you went there as a kid. There was a reason. Someone was leaving. It was like a big thing. And I've remembered flights now that I've taken, interstate or whatever, being completely invisible. Not saying a word, like ultra check-in, check-out mode. And it's, being my age now as well, having friends with kids that are, young adults almost, and you sort of hit the nostalgia again, and you look around and you think, fuck, what have I done? And I'm sitting in a room somewhere in about a K or two away from where I grew up, staring at walls of the crap that I used to have in my bedroom as a kid. I realize I haven't actually done jack. It's all very depressing. But seriously, no, what I did want to talk about was the reset experience with my good friend Fabien. I had him in January, I think it was, maybe just after I'd got him back from Vietnam. Yeah, I'd had him in. He talked about his background, obviously, and his stuff, his ventures into somatic and breathwork exercises and all that sort of thing. And he'd had a session that he was holding, and I can't remember when it was, if it was right before me going to Vietnam or Laos or me leaving for Europe. One of the two. It was this year, though. It was earlier this year or at the end of last year, and I said I couldn't make it. But I said he put up a story on his socials, and I jumped on it. So I went along with Steve, good old Steve from the Brothers and Others podcast. I went along with him on Friday night, and we did one of Fabien's workshops. And I went in with zero expectation. I mean, I'd done a bit of breath work in the past and just looked into sort of meditation and things like that. Yeah, meditation and self-soothing sort of shit. But never to that extent, obviously. So I went in complete blank slate, blank canvas, open. I was open and ready to receive. You can't go into these things as a hater. Like, you just can't. You have to surrender to, the person leading the thing. And you got to just trust that, if you take the journey, you'll see what they see and you'll end up where they say you're going to end up. So it was very, very interesting. I mean, you get in, we got in, and straight away, you're removing your shoes and sitting on a yoga mat. So straight away, I felt defenseless and naked. I know when they tell you to take your shoes off, it's very, very, I don't know. I've got no problem taking my shoes off. When I go see clients, if I've got to go to their houses or something, and I'm seeing the shoes out the front. I know we got into this on the podcast a while ago because John's not one to take his shoes off the fly. But you feel very vulnerable. So your guard is going to be rendered useless. immobilized. And so you sit down on the yoga mat, you're listening. So we're listening to Fabien and go over the sort of spiel. Yeah, sort of warm us up, limber us up, and get us ready to receive. And he takes you through some guided meditation, basically, some guided breath work, controlling your breathing patterns. Not even controlling, conducting your breathing pattern is more like the more accurate word to use. I'm just trying to remember back because I felt really, really clouded when I was going in because it was I had done 2 or 3 18, 19-hour days in a row. And these last few weeks have honestly been very, very stressful, which is why I haven't really been too fussed about missing the pod in these couple of weeks. I honestly haven't been chasing anything in regards to coming here because I've just been I've been too bogged down with work and a lot of overheads just hanging over my head. So it was really, really, I couldn't have gone in better, under better circumstances, just a loaded gun ready to snap. So yeah, after a quiz, after a self sort of assessment quiz where you identify, I really should have brought this damn quiz in. I left it at home. After a self-assessment quiz where you identify things that are important to you, areas where you feel you're bogged down, areas where you feel you're trapped, that are causing you self-harm, all that sort of thing, and, identifying factors, things that you want to achieve, things that you wish you had more time for, all that sort of thing. Once we got through all those niceties, you turn to a stranger, someone sitting next to you and purposely and, well played by our hosts, you were forced to sit in an area away from whoever you'd come to the workshop with or who you knew. So you're forced to interact with a complete stranger. And we got underway with some deep staring, and I mean literally. So you paired up with the person next to you, and at one point you're receiving, at one point you're doing the observing, and you just sit there pretty closely, and you just observe the person opposite you. And it was quite a surreal sensation, to be honest, an experience where you've got a stranger you've just met in the previous 20 minutes. You've only gone through some niceties of hello, how are you? Why, what are you in for? Why are you here? And then you're staring at them for a good couple of minutes, and it's very confronting, but it was nice. It was a nice experience. And then from there, I'm just trying to think, because I'm obviously paraphrasing, but I'm just trying to think. I remember the key things that I took away from the evenings, which is what I want to get into. So from that, we basically, have a little break ski and then sit down and go into it. So you've got a set of headphones on, and you're lying down on this yoga mat. You either got your head elevated or however you're comfortable, but you're doing deep, intense breathing in through the mouth, out through the mouth, really forceful exertions, I think is the best way to describe them. And the whole concept is the more oxygen you get, the higher you basically get, and the more more peace. It's a numbing sensation. Tyler Durden said it on Fight Club. That's why the oxygen masks fall down on planes, because oxygen gets you high. An overload of oxygen gets you high. So you're doing this forceful exertion and the goal of it is to basically detox your system and reset your nervous system, which is it's why it's called the reset experience. And the best way I can describe it would be going in with your jangled nerves, looking like a ball of extension cables and wires and stuff, and just literally shaking them till everything becomes unstuck, unglued, and everything lies straight. Now, the first bit of the guided experience, and remember this whole time, you've got headphones, so they're noise cancelling effectively, and you've got a sleep mask on as well. And if you close your eyes, and you're obviously wearing a sleep mask too, it's pitch black. You are surrounded by pitch black, and all you can hear is some music, some rhythmic music, and obviously Fabien, guiding the experience. And he basically, the first element of it was creating, taking you back to your younger self, telling you to go between the ages of 5 and 10 and placing you at your childhood home. So going to the front door, walking through the front door and seeing your childhood self, standing there, staring back at you. And I made a point when we were in reflection mode at the end and we all shared our experience. I made a point of highlighting the fact that Fabien and I have grown up together. I've known him since I was 4 or 5 years old, and we both spent a lot of time at my childhood home. So being there was already setting off those triggers for me. And so that was very easy for me to do. Picture my childhood home, picture myself at 5, 10 years old. In my brain, I knew exactly what I was looking at. I was looking at grade 5 version of me, so 10, not going on to 11. It's one of the few school photos that I actually have in possession. I'm pretty sure I've got a scan of it, and I may have a physical copy, but I doubt it. I don't have any of my school photos. My mum's got them, and my sister's got them. Someone's got them. And I don't have access to any of the photo albums, that we had growing up. But that school photo, I specifically remember. I remember physically trying to get myself to smile before the photo itself, because I hate posed photos. I hate them. Most of my favorite photos of myself are all candids taken by someone else. I hate posed photos. And I was, at that age, I had pretty crappy self-esteem. I was being bullied. I just wasn't in a good place. And I remember this, even being 10, I could still identify with the fact that I was just a sad kid. And it would explain a lot of my other outward behavior, So I could easily I placed myself in that scene immediately. The house I grew up in is no longer there. Got bulldozed about 2 years ago, but I have a picture of it tattooed on my arm, and it's the house you grew up in. My mum had it till 2017, so do the maths. She moved in at the start of 84, I think. Start of 84, end of 83. She was pregnant, so probably start of 84. No, she was pregnant when she was buying the house. I remember she was telling me. So, yeah, so do the maths. 84 to 2017, and then bulldozed in 2023. So, nearly 40 years, basically, of this house being in existence, in and around my family. And Fabien's guiding you through the whole process, and he's telling you, tell this child, tell your younger self what it is you'd want the child. What is the first thing your younger self would say to you? Seeing you after greeting you or whatever it is, and then what would you tell this younger self of yours? What do you feel that they need to hear? At that age, given everything you've gone through now, at this point in life. So, 30 odd years later, what do you feel they need to hear? And then sort of guides you. It's all about, releasing inner trauma and forgiving yourself, forgiving other people, being able to let go of the past. And, trauma is a deep seated sort of thing, which is embedded in your DNA. And so I remember specifically this 10-year-old self of mine looking at me and asking for help. It was scary and sad that it came immediately. But straight up, the kid looked sad. And what I mean by this kid, it's literally me. It's self-reflection. And it's me looking into my childhood home, looking out and seeing me at 10 years old. And I specifically, vividly pictured that child saying, help. And it took me back to where I was, in 94, 95. And I basically, as Fabien guided us over the experience and said, now put, your arm around this child and lean down and tell them, what it is they need to hear, and offer them their support and, unconditional, love and support and all that sort of stuff. I remember, it's really weird because there's things that happen to us that stay with us forever for good reasons, bad reasons, whatever it is. And people always say, let shit go, yada, yada. And it's true, you can't keep carrying bricks forever. But I remember taking myself back to being 10 years old and feeling completely helpless. So I grew up in a, lower, upper, middle, it's an upper, lower class home, basically. It's a working class family, one real income, old school, traditional sort of rule sets, very strict, patriarchal sort of, set up, the old man was king. And, I didn't have any confidence I was living basically in my sister's shadow. Everyone thought she was older than me. I was a pretty small kid. I didn't hit a growth spurt till I was about, 17 or something, till I actually, but I was constantly bullied and sort of picked on and stuff because I was pretty bright then. I just basically became dumb through lack of effort and painkillers. But I specifically remember being 10 and I used to draw a lot. That was my outlet. My creative outlet was drawing. I used to draw and read a lot. That's the two things I did. And I felt helpless because the old man, we didn't seem rich. We didn't seem like we had any money at that time. And any time I sensed there was turbulence, with the old man, with his work or whatever, I just assumed we'd be broke and we'd be on the street, homeless, starving. It always went to the worst. And I always felt like the responsibility would fall on me, even though like at 10 years old. It's a heavy burden to be carrying, even if it is just psychologically. No one ever made me feel like I was free from it. And if what your parents have is as good as it gets, then that's all I ever thought would be there for me. So it was a really, really dark cloud that I actually had to grow up under. And you know what I remember? I still fucking, to this day, this reels me in. I remember my grade 4 teacher, incidentally who I had in grade 1, and abused the fuck out of me because I drew something the wrong color. It's when I didn't realize I didn't know I was colorblind. And I drew something the wrong shade of blue and I got fucking yelled at like I was totally inept, inadequate and just intellectually disabled. I came to tears. I was fucking 6. I still remember it. And I ended up having the same teacher in grade 4 and I fucking hated it. And I still remember being genuinely a well-disciplined kid, right? Because I had my old man to answer to. And I still remember reports. It was either the end of term or the end of year, but it was definitely one where you write reports. It was either mid-year or end of year. And for some reason, I got to be, not rambunctious, but boisterous, with some other people in the class, like we were lining up to do something or whatever. Teachers told me off for something, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then it's happened again, a couple of hours later, and then it's happened the next day or something. I don't know. It was just like one of those things, right? And the teacher had the balls to say something like, the reports haven't been finalized yet, blah, blah, blah. I can always go back and change them. And that, for my first reaction was panic. And then the next one was like, why would you be such a cunt to me? Why? Because I've just fallen, out of line for 2 seconds after a year of being the most studious, observant kid on the fucking planet. Why would you threaten me with that? I still remember being able to compartmentalize that and actually look back at that almost like an adult and just say, what the fuck? You're just a cunt. I still remember it. So that's obviously what's come up when I've done all the, what's it called? All the breath work. That was the first stop. Thanks, Fabien. Traumatic experiences from my childhood. So that was what was running through my head when I've, encountered my 10-year-old self. All that's come flooding back. And I've knelt down and said to my younger self, fuck him. That was the first thing I said. Fuck him. They're all hacks. None of these people will mean anything in 20 years. That's what I said to my younger self, my 10-year-old self, as a 40-year-old. And as spiteful as that is and as toxic as that may be in itself, I don't care. My 10-year-old self needed to hear that. Because my 10-year-old self didn't have any lifelines, didn't have any real friends. I could count the friends I had. And most of those friends that I had then, I still talk to now, which aren't many at all, if any. And I thought, that's so not productive. But you know what? I don't care. Fuck them. And it felt really, really good to be able to say that. To be able to tell my 10-year-old self, fuck all these people. They don't mean shit, and they won't. You'll get there. You'll do it on your own. You'll do it with people that actually matter, and that's the end of it. And that was 10-year-old me. Oh my God. I'm just reflecting now. And then it's strange. From that point, everything sort of took a turn and the breath work intensified. The breathing intensified, the exertions intensified, and you started going on a roller coaster. And everyone's journeys looks different. This is what Fabien was sort of instructing and told us, at the start. Everyone's vision, everyone's journey is going to look different by the end of it. We're all going to have different experiences. We're all going to share something different. So you don't feel like you need to be led, or you need to match what someone else is doing, or like where you can hear someone. You were encouraged to like yell. You had a pillow, and for physical exertion, you could yell and release all that stress and all that sort of thing, which was really, really liberating. I didn't quite get to that. I did allow myself to exert loudly and all that sort of thing and feel comfortable to do that. Maybe next time I will scream into the pillow. It's been a while. You need it. You need a good scream every now and then. Anyway, so as we're taking this journey, I basically began to unravel everything for myself. And the one thing I've struggled with for the last couple of years has been sleep. I've said this before on the pod. I'm pretty sure I've said it. It didn't matter what was going on in my life, I would always be able to sleep. And like when I mean by sleep, I mean solid. I didn't have insomnia. I didn't have, sleep issues. I would sleep. If I put my head down at 11, I would get up whatever time the alarm was going off. No getting up, no bathroom breaks, nothing. I would sleep. Didn't matter what was going on. I was always sort of staying on top of that. I was fine. Of course, I was in a lot better shape than I am now. Obviously, that plays a part when you're overweight, when you've got sinusitis and you've got all these other ailments and stuff, which all come from toxic behavior. It's obviously a lot easier to regulate, and obviously I'm not as young as I was. But that's the one thing I've really, really, really struggled with. And I know exactly when it all started. Back in December 22 was when it all kicked off. Some internal family shit that really set me off and basically added a cloud over my day-to-days. And since then, I've had cortisol spikes, just struggling. You wake with cortisol spikes, you wake up at random hours of the night, and you just stay awake. And it's uninterrupted. You could sleep for 10 hours, and it's interrupted sleep. So you sleep for 10 hours, and you don't feel like you've rested a minute. So basically, my journey down the rabbit hole was, effectively, me asking myself, so when did this change? When did all this go astray? So, all the toxicity, all the negativity, my poor choices, all that sort of stuff, where did it go wrong? And you're basically going through a time machine. This was my experience anyway. Going through a time machine thinking, well, what have I done? Who have I seen? Who have I met? What has changed? And you're going through it like Tron. Just, it was so weird. And I skipped back as far as I could. So obviously, I'm pretty good at self-reflection and pinpointing things like that, but this was deep, like a deep dive. And I ended up and I said, well, when was the last time I was actually okay, where I didn't matter what stress I had, how far back can I go where I actually was winning in my head and I didn't have stress, like outside of the day-to-day. And I went back as far as about 2013. And it was like, boom, like it was deep. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Suddenly everything seemed clear. There was deep clarity because the one thing I actually acknowledged was that obviously with my anxiety, one thing I struggle with is with breath. I'm always short of breath. You may not notice because the only thing you really hear is this. Sometimes you hear me taking big gasps that I do too well to edit this shit out. But yeah, I struggle with breathing. The last couple of years, I've been using my inhalers a lot. Obviously, being overweight and all that sort of thing doesn't help. But at the same time, I've always felt short of breath the last couple of years. And, even with basic stuff. So I've mentally asked myself, why is your breathing so shit? This is in my sort of during the breathwork thing, going through my guided meditation. I said, why is your breath so shit? You used to be able to sit at the bottom of like 4 meter drop pools, diving pools. I would literally float to the bottom and sit there and control my breathing and basically sit underwater for minutes, taking very, very short measured breaths, exerting and being able to sit there. And I remember asking myself, well, when was the last time you remember doing this? And I went to 2013 when I'd gone away to Torquay, Barwon Heads. I'd gone to do skydiving for the weekend, and I was staying in a hotel with a drop pool, like a diving pool that was about 4 or 5 meters deep. And I specifically remember spending a couple hours floating to the bottom of this pool in the lotus position, sitting on the bottom of the pool and controlling my breath. And it's like, well, you used to be able to do that. Why can't you do it anymore? You need to get back to that. And then in a state, I just said, shit, who did I meet? What did I do? What changed in my life after that point? And the truth is, a lot changed for me in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. With work, with people I associated with, financially, everything changed in that decade. But a lot has changed over the last couple of years. And, I mean, it all just compounds. By the end of the breath work, I could feel myself taking long, measured, controlled, deep breaths with very long exhales. I felt like I was sitting at the bottom of that pool, just going, and then going again. I'd gone from really short, exaggerated, forceful exertions to very long, controlled breaths, to the point where I was complete calm, complete peace. And as I slowly came to, I hadn't fallen asleep, but I'd been in like a trance-like state. And everyone around us is doing sort of the same thing. One or two people had nodded off. But I know I hadn't fallen asleep. It was just, I was in that sort of a zone. I was in the pocket, deep in the cut, where I just had ultimate control over my breathing, over my nerves, everything unjangled. I went home that night, and for the last 3 nights, I've slept uninterrupted. So whatever time I've gone to bed, I've literally slept all the way through. I've not done that for 2-3 years. And I can honestly say it's 100% attributed to the reset method in Fabien's breathwork workshop. 100%. Full confidence. Because mentally, I'm at sort of wit's end. Right now, I've got a lot of overheads coming. Today, I shared this with one of my mates. I got my last 5 emails in my inbox, one of my inboxes, are all bills. Like there's rego, there's electricity, there's a phone, a re-up for phone credit for one of my phones. I can't remember what the other one was. But there's about $1,100-$1,200 worth of bills. And my paycheck comes in today. And if it covers it, I'll be lucky. But that's it. And everything else is overdrawn for the week. Yeah, and I've got nothing else left. So mental, and I've got like deadlines. I've got all types of shit, all types of stress, and I've been able to sleep, since Friday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So 4 nights I've slept uninterrupted, which I have not done in 4 years, in 2.5 years. Let's just say 2.5 years. That's incredible. Fabien hinted that it may have been he was planning on having, that would be his last session, but, given the reception just as of the last one, he may kick on, and I'm here to say he 100% needs to keep doing this, because if he doesn't, I'll be knocking on someone else's door to figure out where I can actually get this exact service, because it was incredible. There's no woo-woo-ness to it. You're not calling to a higher power. The higher power is you. You're literally tapping into you, and it's about resetting your circuit, resetting your nervous system, resetting all the toxins, all the negativity that you sort of take on. And it's strange. It got me thinking just about, past, present, nostalgia, all that sort of thing. I hate nostalgia. At the same time, a lot of the stuff I do is driven by nostalgia. I really lean into the 80s and 90s and things we had when we were younger. culturally, pop culture, all that sort of stuff. And I've always said it, the nostalgia is an anchor that keeps you, holds you back from doing things that you want to do, progressing, all that sort of thing. Society has only progressed by reviewing the past, making sure we don't make the same mistakes, but, at the same time, keeping an open mind and keep moving forward. But there were a lot of things that came up because of that workshop and a few other things that popped up the last couple of days. I agree that toxicity needs to be released, and I agree that, you need to let go of the past, you need to let go of a lot of things, but at the same time, I'm big on retribution. I'm big on not letting, I don't know, it's not a pious thing. It's not because I'm any better than anyone else, but I know that, me, for example, like millions of other people across the world, and billions throughout the history of time, have gotten the short end of the stick. And I say this being completely aware that I won the lottery of life where I live in Australia, and I don't have planes flying overhead or anything like that. But I do know, for example, that I was bullied, as a kid and as a teenager. I was bullied, controlled, manipulated, all that sort of shit. I had my mental health fucked with. I went through a lot of shit that no one really should ever go through. And I saw an interesting tweet go up on my socials the other day, and I had to save it because it made me laugh. Someone named Jason Mustian, I got no idea who that is. Or maybe I'll look him up after this. He tweeted, "Life is short, and never has that been more apparent than it is now. So call someone you haven't spoken to in a while. Tell them to go fuck themselves before it's too late." That spoke volumes with me. Because it's true. There are people that just simply need to know that they're arseholes. They can go fuck themselves. I don't believe in turning the other cheek on everything. There are a lot of friendships that I've resurrected. There's a lot of relationships and friendships that I've revisited because I've given either the person the benefit of the doubt, or I've heard an explanation, or we've just had a discussion and we've both aired our grievances, and you move on, right? If it's that valuable, if it's that meaningful, by all means, go back down that road and move forward together in a better place. But there are people from my past that pop up, in my subconscious. Sometimes when I'd wake up at 3 a.m, and all of a sudden I'd go down that rabbit hole of, fuck me. What happened to my teenage years? They should have been happier. And 100%, there are people that totally deserve to hear something like, go fuck yourself from me. Like, I'm sure there are plenty of people that would like to say it to me too. I don't care. I don't have an issue with it. I totally agree. Go for it. I have no problem dealing with confrontational shit from the past. I've always done it. And I don't know, I went into that whole thing, like violence is never the answer. You should talk through your problems, blah, 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 blah. Just let bygones be bygones. I'm like, you know what? I think about, say, my teenage years. If I kicked the shit out of a few more people, my life would look totally different. Especially the people that I know I could have beaten up that controlled my life. That really keeps me up at night. Violence is never the answer, but sometimes it is the answer. Because it would change. Violence has changed the course of history. Wars have changed the course of history. Wars have defined and shaped empires. So why would I not let it shape and define my course of history? Why would I allow my 10-year-old or 12-year-old or 15-year-old self, if I knew I had a better way out or a better option, to allow myself to have a normal look back and remember some things in fondness, or just feel better about myself and maybe change, my path? Why wouldn't I give myself that option of just beating the shit out of someone that was a complete tormentor or a bully? Even now I think about it. Certain individuals from my past, the funny part is, I know there are certain people walking around looking over their shoulder from now to the rest of their lives, because that's just how the cards were dealt, which makes me laugh, because I'm not a violent person, and I don't get into fights or anything like that. I tend to just let it go. But I just think about it, what it would be like confronting one of your former bullies, like in the street, at 40. Like, he's a dude walking down the street, wife, kids. All of a sudden, some random dude just comes out of nowhere, punches the fuck out of him. And, if he's laying on the ground or whatever and his missus steps in or whoever he's with, it's like, hey, what are you doing? It's like, this guy bullied me every day for 3 years when I was in high school and made my life a living hell, pushed me to suicide, isolated me. I lost friends because of it. I had no friends because of it. Ruined my self-esteem. All that sort of shit. Would it be justified? I know I'm going into some sort of psychotic manifesto right now, but it really isn't. It's not that bad. It's just sad because I just think about it and that used to keep me up a bit, And then you think of all the personalities that you've dealt with as a teenager, all the big pimps and the girls that, were part of the elite that probably never amounted to shit if they did it all or whatever. I'm not judging anyone. I'm just making a point. And then it's, what's the definition of success? What is the purpose of life? Blah, 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 blah. It's all just a long rabbit hole. That's been on my mind a bit. But, you do the best you can. You keep moving forward. You avoid going to Carlton Football Club games. And you just try and stay on top of your mental health. There is help out there, people. I might release... It's Tuesday. I know I usually release these on Thursdays, but I might release this a bit earlier. The fact of the matter is, I look at my life now, and there's so many things that I've achieved which I never thought I would have ever done. When you've got when you have no self-belief and the examples in front of you, set before you, are very low or bleak. Bleak is probably the best way to describe it. When you leave high school and you've got no friends, no money, ambitions pretty shot to hell, the outlook doesn't look good. Yeah. But I've survived 20 years frustrated because I've thrived in some ways and then felt, not unsatisfied or unfulfilled, but just, you got to look at things that make you happy. I have things that make me happy, but it's only because of the stress that I've put myself under and everything I've taken on to try and fulfill all these things. And it's not about materialism. It's not about any of that. But, when one life plan doesn't work out, and not through lack of trying, but just because, that's the way that the dice rolls, you got to fill the void somehow. It's funny because me and a mate who I've been working with, we've got a few sort of work things, business things sort of coming up. We've been saying it pretty frequently. Fill the void, like in Seinfeld. There's a void, Jerry. There's a void. We all have voids, but it's nice, running into people that I haven't seen in a bunch of years, and they're living completely fulfilled lives. Not just surface levels of shit, but generally in a good place, which is really great. All I know is you got to keep going. You can't make excuses. Can't make excuses for other people. It's all about you. You are responsible for your own success or your own path as best as you can. Things are going to be beyond your control, but I'm very well in the camp of there is no fate, there is no destiny. You just put yourself in the right position as often as you can, and through sheer will, you just keep trying to knock it over. It gets disheartening, and you can, there's the setback that's going to be inevitable. You're going to have setbacks. I said this to a mate yesterday. I quoted Paul Wall. It's the bounce back after the setback. I've actually got that album cover. This same mate made me a birthday present a couple of years ago, and I framed it. It's on my wall in my apartment. It's the bounce back after the setback. But the one thing I don't like living is hypocritical in my endeavors. In other words, actually, I don't know how to put it. It's like I'm wanting more. It's not about wanting more. It's wanting what I want for myself. And it's about being honest with yourself and appreciating everything you have and knowing that there are certain things you can achieve and they're entirely within your ability, but it's just about, are you willing to compromise one thing to make another thing happen? Man, I ran into my cousin the other day. He just got back from Thailand. And the first thing he said was, look at this shit, fucking weather. You know, it's fucking raining, it's freezing. And I looked at him, I said, it's May, man. It's the end of May. We're in June next week. It's winter. We're still having 25-degree days. Are you for real? This is Melbourne. We live on the most southern point of the freaking planet, next to Antarctica. Move to the Sahara. Move to Indonesia. Move to Ecuador. If you want unblemished sun. You know, you can have your third world poverty too. And rampant violence. He sort of went quiet. He's like, yeah, right. I'm just making a point. We live in Melbourne, man. You're complaining about rain in the middle of winter? It's winter. I don't know. I'm rambling at this point. I gotta stop. Anyway, fuck it. Yeah, we're nearly at the hour mark. Like, share, follow, subscribe. I know that I need to keep making content in order for this to grow and for us to hit the algorithm. You may see a lot more garbage go into the socials just to keep the feed alive. I don't know. I've got to do something. I really need everyone to share this thing on their socials. Share it to anyone. Send a mass text. I don't care. You know, I'm throwing myself at the mercy of the court right now. I'm just poor. I'm out of money, so I can't grow this anymore. So I need people to do this organically. Please have it in your heart of hearts. Next time you think about sharing that, I don't know, Kim K bullshit or Billie Eilish or something. I don't know what the kids are listening to these days. Next time you think about sharing some shit on social media, just think, what would you do? Oh my God. Yeah. Smoke crack.
Hold up.